Prime Minister, Belle Puri, CBC, The National. Further to the Han Dong matter, since 2019, what have any national security agencies told you or your party about other Liberal candidates or MPs being under surveillance?
Thank you very much. I think we've seen over the past number of days and weeks many Canadians very concerned about the issue of foreign interference into our democracies, into our election processes. We share that concern. This is an extraordinarily serious issue, and to reassure people, we've been taking it seriously since back in 2015 when we got elected. From the very beginning, we noted as we saw increased election interference from countries like China, Iran, Russia, and others in democracies around the world, we knew we needed to step up Canada's tools to counter foreign influence and interference in our democratic processes. So we did. We stepped up to create a protocol for the 2019 and 2021 elections to notify Canadians in the event our ability to have free and fair elections are threatened. It includes a panel of senior public servants informed by national security agencies and reviewed after every election. The latest review on 2021 just came out and confirms that our election integrity held in 2021 as it did in 2019.
Now, Trudeau is talking about this independent panel that he set up to prevent election interference from happening. And so let me give you the other side of the coin. So not the gaslight side, but let's get to real stuff. So a senior CCP, Chinese Communist Party member, makes substantial donation to the Pierre Trudeau Foundation. In November 2016, after a Cash for Access fundraiser for the Liberal Party that was attended by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the head of the China Cultural Industrial Organization in Canada and senior CCP member Zhang Bin donated $1 million to various Canadian organizations. Now, this face you're seeing is of Maurice Rosenberg, who was the president of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, the exact person that accepted and organized the $1 million money coming from Zhang to the Trudeau Foundation.
So we have been taking this issue extraordinarily seriously. We have been speaking about the dangers of foreign interference since well before the 2019 election, and we will continue to step up on this. It is a responsibility we have always taken very seriously, and it is one we will continue to uphold.
So the head of the report of this panel that reviewed the Chinese collusion, the Chinese interference, is the guy who was head of Trudeau's foundation. One of the defenses Justin Trudeau has used over allegations that China interfered in Canada's election to get him elected is that we have a process to stop this. Beyond pointing to national security agencies, Trudeau has pointed to the task force to top public servants who look for election interference. Just 7 months after the 2019 election, that group released its rather vague report. The report on the 2021 report hasn't been released yet, and last week Trudeau said that wasn't up to him. Faced with new allegations of specific Liberal MP getting help from China, Trudeau said on Monday the report is ready for politicians, if not the public. There is another report, this one written by Maurice Rosenberg, that has been released to both the government and the National Security and Intelligence Committee on Parliamentarians, Trudeau said. There is no date to release this report to the public, but Trudeau wants you to know that both in the 2019 and 2021 elections are election integrity held. How can we know he wants you to trust him? The man Trudeau mentioned who wrote the report, Maurice Rosenberg, is the former head of the Trudeau Foundation. Rosenberg spent decades as a senior civil servant running departments for both Liberal and Conservative prime ministers. Just before joining the Trudeau Foundation in 2014, he was the Deputy Minister at Foreign Affairs under the Harper government. Still, the Poilievre Conservatives are raising issue with Rosenberg's time at the Trudeau Foundation and the money that came into that organization from China just when Justin Trudeau took over the Liberal leadership.
Next question.
Hi, it's Derek Penner, Vancouver Sun and Province. It's another question for the Prime Minister. Post News has learned that parliamentary committee today will be asking government to call a national inquiry, a nonpartisan national inquiry into the issue of potential foreign influence into elections. How will your government respond to that request?
I think one of the most important things to remember is we have an awful lot of mechanisms that are underway right now around determining what kind of foreign interference has happened, is continuing to happen, and demonstrating the tools we have. Right now, as we're speaking, our parliamentary committee is hearing directly from national security experts and officials as to the work that they've been doing over the past many years to counter ongoing interference. We also know that the National Security Committee of Parliamentarians is going to dig into this question, as they have in the past as well. There are multiple processes ongoing. There are a report that just came out, an independent report that just came out on the functioning of the High Panel for Election Interference.
National Post documented several years ago that in 2015, foreign donations rose from 53,000 in 2014 to 428,000 in 2015 and 535,000 in 2016. Serious questions must be asked about this appointment and whether the Liberals are actually taking this threat against our democracy seriously, the Conservatives said in a news release Monday afternoon. They are calling for Rosenberg to appear before the Commons Committee studying allegations of Chinese interference to answer questions. Anyways, that's an article right by there by the Toronto Sun.
But we will continue to do what is necessary to reach those two clear goals that Canadians can expect. First of all, that our agencies and officials and institutions have all the tools necessary to safeguard our democracy and our elections. And two, that Canadians can continue to have confidence, not just in our national security officials, but in the integrity of our democracies. We will continue to work to make sure that that happens.
Now, for those that don't know much about the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, which is me, I'm learning as well. It was founded in 2001 by friends and family of former Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. The foundation supports creative and critical thinkers who make meaningful contributions to pressing social issues through scholarships, fellowships, mentorships, and public interaction events. It has granted hundreds of significant awards to top researchers and highly accomplished individuals in Canada and abroad. Well, I can tell you, I didn't get any money from the Trudeau Foundation for independent news. It's just the opposite. So in April 2014, Morris Rosenberg was appointed President and Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Brenna Owen with the Canadian Press. We've touched on some of this, but I do have a question for my colleagues in Ottawa. In his report on the critical election incident public protocol, Morris Rosenberg recommended Ottawa explore lowering the threshold for when to notify Canadians about potential interference in an election campaign. Are you open to the public being notified about this interference during a campaign, even if it involves like one riding or community?
The panel on election interference looks at the whole of the election in all ridings at the national level, but also looks at what's happening on the ground in particular ridings, because Elections Canada and CSIS and our security agencies are constantly working together to ensure that everywhere our institution is strong and our elections are fair.
So into the Zhang Bin, so the Chinese official who has given the money. The Chinese Communist Party official, Mr. Zhang, who's given all this money to the Trudeau Foundation. Let's read what it even says on Wikipedia. Directed donation from Chinese government is the headline. In February 2023, the Globe and Mail reported that Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation allegedly received $200,000 donation from Chinese billionaire Zhang Bin at the direction of the Chinese government, with the promise that the government would repay the donation on the basis anonymously unconfirmed source. The donation was allegedly accepted by then CEO Morris Rosenberg. According to the same unconfirmed sources, an additional $750,000 was donated to the Pierre Trudeau Alma Mater Foundation, the University of Montreal Faculty of Law, while $50,000 was allegedly donated for the construction of a statue at the University of Montreal. That's that Trudeau statue that was never built. According to the unconfirmed sources, Mr. Zhang had originally requested that the statue be both Pierre Trudeau and Mao Zedong. So Mao is, Chinese communist revolutionary who was founder of the People's Republic of China, which has led to as the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from the establishment of the PRC in 1949 until his death in 1976. So Mao is, one of those dictators that is responsible for millions of genocide, apparently. I've never actually looked into the details, but it's known that he is a mass murderer of genocide. So, but again, you got to look into everything, for yourself. But the university rebuffed this proposal, and the statue of only Pierre Trudeau was ultimately planned. Yeah.
We are absolutely very much looking at the recommendations that are put forward in that report. They are important and excellent recommendations. On every single one, there are lines to be drawn. There are consequences for moving forward on them that have to be carefully looked at. The impact of an announcement of a threat of interference in the middle of an election campaign could be difficult to measure, and we have to make sure we're getting it right. But there are very, very good questions posed in that report that we're going to study carefully. And then I certainly expect that we will have many conversations on, not just as a government, but as a society, on the best way to empower Canadians to go into the voting booth with full understanding of what's going on and what pressures may be brought to bear on them in misinformation and disinformation and interference, while at the same time not being seen to tip the scales one way or another because of concerns that people are highlighting.
Allegations regarding the role of the Chinese Communist Party in directing and funding the donation were revealed as part of a series of leaks claimed to be from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service regarding Chinese political interference. So again, whistleblowers. Whistleblowers are very important. There's the whistleblower about the Afghanistan murdering people, innocent civilians caught on camera, and then many people may know his name, and now he's in jail for being a whistleblower by the CIA. So that's what happens when you reveal who these whistleblowers are. The whistleblowers end up in jail because we don't want people talking about what the FBI and CIA and the Biden administration is doing behind closed doors, right? So to be a whistleblower, it's a big risk. And for somebody at the CSIS to take that risk to whistleblow this out means it's very serious, and they're really pissed off that this has not been looked into and the elections are compromised.
It is an important thing to get vaccinated, the tools right to protect our democracy. And I thank Mr. Rosenberg for his hard work and all his recommendations. We will look very carefully at them, and we will continue working on them with.
On March 1st, 2023, the Trudeau Foundation announced that it will return the $140,000 that has thus received from Mr. Zhang. On March 1st, just yesterday. What? I never heard this either. He's going to return $140,000. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now that it's in the limelight. So this is big news, guys. This might officially be the end, the resignation of Trudeau and these MPs. Because you got to remember, the election of the Canadian Prime Minister, it's not just one election across Canada. It doesn't work that way. There's individual ridings, there's individual MPs that make up how many ridings? Like 360 to 400 individual elections. So, one person has the election for this territory, for Toronto, for this territory of Ottawa, etc. And, for the Okanagan, where I'm from, the South Okanagan, and then the North Okanagan. So I voted for the South Okanagan here for the PPC, which was Sean at the time. And so when you have this, Mr. Dong winning his election, but also bussing in visitors to Canada who are on visas, and old folks, people who are having to write, they're written on their arm about who to vote for Mr. Dong. That is complete election interference in that riding, and there needs to be new elections for those individual MPs. And we know of 12 of them that have been coerced, intercepted, broken up with this coercion of China, election interference. So those 12, we know of 12 individual ridings that we had election interference, and those ridings should absolutely have new elections. Mr. Dong should be resigning right away. What a little he thinks he can just stick this out. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's a lot of out there, right, in these political affairs and MPs.
Follow-up question?
I am going to just stay with the report. It says the risk, quote, that withholding information and having it come out after the election would decrease public confidence in the government's approach to countering election interference. Do you share that concern given the recent allegations?
These are all concerns that we have. There are no easy answers when it comes to where one draws the line on that. That's why we put those decisions in the hands of independent public servants, not in the hands of political parties. Not just because we can trust independent public servants, but also because Canadians will want to see objective measures as interference is countered and publicized. These are very serious questions to study, and we are absolutely looking very, very carefully at all the report's recommendations.
Pierre Poilievre, who essentially is a liberal conservative. He is putting up a nice fight in Parliament on the gun ban and the C11 and C21 and bringing up these issues about Trudeau, but at the same time, he's a controlled opposition that gets out there and right next to the Pied Piper and talks about, we need to support Ukraine, we need to push this war, we're warmongering, there is no peace talks, Ukraine must win at all costs, there is no end to this, there is no peace talks, Canada is not a peacekeeper nation, we are in the middle of this war, we are allies with NATO, and we are going to fight until the end, until all Ukrainians who can be enlisted to fight are dead. So this is your Piper, Trudeau and Pied Piper, Pierre Poilievre, okay? Versus somebody like me and somebody like Maxime Bernier is like, no, we're not involved in this war between NATO and Russia. That is their bullshit. Keep us out of it as Canada, as a peacekeeper nation. And I personally know, and so does Maxine, we all know this war, Ukraine is just being destroyed at the U.S. breaking the Warsaw Pact policy about not moving in on Russia's borders. They set up 6 new bases on Putin's border. They are instigating this war. And now Russia is going to have to end it because the U.S. is going to continue to send and print money and send tanks and weapons. And now Zelensky's even asked for the U.S. to enlist men, to enlist youth to go to war, to fight in this war, because he's running out of men. If you guys don't know, but there was around 750 Ukrainian soldiers dying per day, and now it's up to 1,000 per day. And I can tell you on the Russian side, it is not like that at all. You could say 1 in 6 is the ratio, and so essentially they're going to run out of Ukrainian military soon enough. But again, they're going to keep sending tanks, and they're holding this line at the east-west. So I believe Russia just needs to come in and end this war, or it's going to drag on for years like Afghanistan. Putin is probably planning an attack. He's probably going to come through the north, just wipe it out, and then take over. Because now it was initially just a special military operation, right? I don't want you on our borders. Donbass and the east there, it's all Russian ethnic people. They don't want to be continued being bombed by the military of Ukraine. So the Ukrainian people, Ukrainians, are all in the east, and Russian ethnics are all in the west of Ukraine. It's not like, and they don't want to be bombed and killed by the eastern Ukrainian people that are prejudiced against them and say they can't even speak their rights. There was never any like, hey, let's work together. Everyone's allowed to have their own languages. We'll live in peace and harmony. No, there's been a civil war going on for a decade in Ukraine, and most people don't even want to know about this. And so now it's too late. Putin just can't back off at all because, you know, in a year or so, the Ukrainian army with all the U.S. military aid is going to continue to build up, and it just continue, and then it will attack Russia. It will attack Donbass, and the attacks will keep going on. So essentially, Putin has to end this war for everybody, and I think that's what needs to happen, and how it's going to happen. Otherwise, essentially, there will be no Ukrainians left. Okay, guys. So
Last question.
For the Minister, this is Julie Nolan from Global National. When did you first learn of the CSIS allegations concerning Han Dong's alleged connection to China's election interference network?
The national security agencies in this country have been dealing with foreign interference for a very, very long time. And as a government, we've been talking about the impacts of foreign interference on Canadians for many, many years, even as we're building up more and more tools for our institutions to defend ourselves, for our democracy to remain robust. And it's important to highlight that the greatest targets of foreign interference are diaspora communities themselves. The Chinese government goes after Chinese citizens and Chinese parliamentarians. The Iranian regime goes after the Iranian diaspora. Russian speakers are more exposed to Russian misinformation and disinformation online and on the web. Every step of the way, we have ensured and continue to ensure that populations that are particularly vulnerable to foreign interference by problematic state actors are properly supported and properly informed of the risks that they are being targeted. This is something that we will continue to do.
Follow up.
Do you feel you should have been briefed about the allegations against Han Dong?
As I said, as a government and as parliamentarians, we are constantly being engaged with by our security agencies around how to keep safe from foreign interference, how to make sure that we're able to stand and speak for our communities as members of parliament without having to be impacted by state actors from other countries, like China and others, who are specifically targeting Chinese Canadian communities or Iranian Canadian communities or others. This is one of those things that this government has taken more steps on than any previous government, and we will continue to take this issue extremely seriously. It's not a question of partisanship or partisan gain, as we are seeing somewhere in some of the comments out there. This is about all of us standing together for the integrity of our democracies, of our institutions, because that's what Canadians can and must expect from their governments.
This concludes our press conference. Ceci conclut notre conférence de presse. Thank you for your participation.
Well, anyways, that was a good enough rant to end us off, guys. Cheers, have a good one. Marcel, Ernie Racing News, February 2nd. March 2nd.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate.
而且我们也不是那样进行的。
And that's not how the way the conversation was
如果有
conducted.
诚心，咱们
If
In
there is
Canada, we
sincerity
believe
on
in
your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will
有
have
一
to
些可以
continue.
建设性，但是
创造条件，创造条件。
Let's create the conditions first.
好，好。